Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets. Good morning. It is Monday morning, January 11th, 2021. As of tomorrow, we will be 3 weeks into the NBA season. Your Brooklyn Nets are 5-6, back under 500 after losing back-to-back games. Hudson Flynn and I are joining you to talk about the Nets. And it's always better to talk about the Nets the morning after a loss, the morning after back-to-back losses, with all that the Nets are dealing with. It's better to sleep on it and then clear your head and go straight into it in the morning, and that's what we're doing. Hudson Flynn, how's the morning been for you? How's it going? How was your weekend? How's it going just being a Nets fan, man? Say what's up to the people.
Man, I'll tell you, definitely the right choice to record this morning rather than after the game last night. We could have. It was an early game, had plenty of time after it. But boy, I was, I can honestly say I was in no place to talk about the Brooklyn Nets after last night. And just it wasn't more like an anger. It wasn't any of that. Cause, if you bring like an anger, that can make a good podcast. People love it when you yell on a podcast and all that stuff. But it was more just depressing. Like I just watched the Nets give up. And, even when I was putting out clips and tweeting and stuff from the account, like, KD would do something amazing and I put a clip out and, the only, interactions we get were people saying, who cares? Doesn't matter. Nets are still losing. Who cares? And like, it just like last night just kind of felt like the most real of any of the Nets losses this season, because there's been some close ones. There's been some ones where you can kind of explain things away, early in the season, all that. But last night, everything kind of came together and, it just kind of, at least me, I'll let you say how it left you feeling, but it just left me feeling depressed, dejected, and just not in a good place as a Nets fan.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to find some optimism, trying to be positive, trying to put a positive spin on it, maybe find a silver lining. And I don't really have that many. Uh, last night, there was no way I could have recorded after the game last night. Last night was the first game of this season that I turned off before the final, just because I was just pissed, like watching everything collapse, watching everything fall apart. Uh, we get to see KD last night for the first time in the blue throwback jerseys. We get to see KD for the first time with the Nets without Kyrie. So I was kind of optimistic going into that game. I was even optimistic going into that game, thinking that Kyrie might show up last night. Now, obviously, we knew, and I want to get the Kyrie discussion going early in the pod, and we'll just talk about how you honestly feel. It's changed for me. I know, we're both supporting him. Yes, Hudson put out a tweet on Nets Twitter. We support Kyrie. And that's 100% how I felt that day. And I still feel, but now it's Monday. Now everyone's getting back to work. Everyone is thinking about their business, their profession, what they do. And I think it's definitely time for Kyrie to either give us a definitive, yes, he'll be back tomorrow. Like we need to know today whether he'll be back tomorrow to face the Nuggets and then the Knicks on Wednesday, or if this personal leave is going to be a week long, a month long, or even a season long. I've even seen some haters say he might retire. Hudson, how are you feeling about Kyrie now that it's been a few days? He's missed 3 games. We've lost 2 out of those 3 games. And I don't know, maybe if Kyrie plays last night, maybe we have enough to hold off OKC. I can't say that, but this is supposed to be the KD and Kyrie era. It's unfortunate that things outside of basketball have impacted this season right now, but it's also a reminder that this is just basketball.
Yeah. And, I still agree with that tweet that I put out. I support Kyrie Irving and, there's been some conflicting reports about why he's been out and some speculation. So I don't want to get too deep into that. I just want to say, you know, the events that have happened last week, they've affected everyone, in this country, in a unique and different way. And, Kyrie, tends to get affected by these things. He's such a, passionate person, such a spiritual person that he gets affected by these things. And if that's what this is about, then that's what this is about. And, that's all good with me, but like you said, I would like to have some communication just so, we can know how long he's out for. At least I hope the team knows how long he's been out for. We saw it was changed from personal reasons to a personal leave. That kind of insinuates that there's an agreement between the team and Kyrie Irving, for how long it would be and stuff like that. So hopefully that will kind of, sort itself out, and at least the team will know how long they're going to be without him for. But, it's tough to watch your team lose without him, but it's pretty clear after beating, two of the best teams in the league when we talked, last episode, with the Jazz and the 76ers, and then losing to two not very good teams, two particularly bad teams in the West, all without Kyrie Irving. It doesn't, to me, seem like Kyrie being out is the problem. And I think he's certainly an easy scapegoat, along with, Coach Nash, Landry Shamet. We saw a lot of scapegoating on Nets Twitter last night. But, if the Nets can beat those good teams without him, they can beat those bad teams without him. So I'm not going to place any of the blame for last night on his absence or anything like that. I just, continue to hope all is well. And I just hope that, whatever is going on, it can sort itself out shortly so that we can watch Kyrie Irving on the basketball court. Because at the end of the day, he's box office, he's great entertainment, and he really, makes this Nets team different.
I just hate that these lames get what they want, right? Especially these Celtics fans and these NBA Twitter haters. They get what they wanted. They wanted to say that Kyrie is a team killer. They wanted to say that, good luck with Kyrie. Oh, this is what you asked for. This is what you get when you get Kyrie Irving. And it's so much deeper than that. I just hate that these people get to gloat in the fact that Kyrie isn't playing and that Kyrie, I think a lot of the conversation was around how Kyrie did it. And I hate also people trying to equate Kyrie Irving to a regular civilian, like he works at UPS and he didn't show up for his job and didn't contact his boss to tell him he wasn't going to be at work. Like, it's not the case. He's one of the best basketball players in the world. He plays NBA basketball. And honestly, going back to the summer when Steven Jackson was telling y'all, it's not time to be playing basketball, y'all. He basically was saying, not to go to the bubble. And we remember Kyrie speaking against the bubble. And I also remember Kyrie speaking about the momentum that he thought we had as a country, maybe even that Black people had as a race. But it isn't just Black people alone in this. And this is an issue for the United States. And I know it's all speculation, but it's obviously, the speculation we've heard is that Kyrie was obviously displeased with what he saw on Wednesday. I'm still disgusted by it as more information comes out. And then he also was displeased with the Breonna Taylor verdict and the lack of, justice that came from that. And I know he was someone that very early took on responsibility. He had a whole show around Breonna Taylor and what went on. And he said, this isn't just a flash of the pan kind of thing. We're going to see this thing through. And I think he is. But I think there comes a time, which is now, that we just need to get a definitive yes or no, whether he'll be playing or not. For the entire team, I feel like it's a cloud hanging over the team right now. It's tough. They're his friends, teammates, colleagues that care about him. And then you hear the media, everybody in the media crushing this guy, killing this guy, and forgetting that, like I said, he's just a basketball player. It's like we hold our basketball players to higher standards than we hold elected officials. And I don't know. That's all I got to say about Kyrie. I just think it's, there's a small window, right? The window is closing, right? You miss 3 games, you leave. You don't fly with the team on Memphis. You don't show up Sunday. Okay, we need to know as of Monday, January 11th, whether you're going to be playing this week or if you still need time. If you still need time, that's fine. But we do need some type of notice. We do need some type of information on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, I think, at this point, we should just we should just let ourselves segue into the games, because that's really what it comes down to. Because if the Nets had won these last 2 games like they were supposed to, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Nets Twitter would not have turned on Kyrie in the way that it did. There wouldn't be, any gloating from the haters like there has been. And that kind of all stems from the fact that the Nets lost these 2 games. They're 5-6 now. They have a losing record even deeper into the season. 3 weeks in, things haven't necessarily sorted themselves out. And, there's some glaring weaknesses on this team. And it's things that I think we need to address and need to be addressed in general.
Yeah. In the next 20 minutes, we'll talk about both of these games. The NBA itself is in an interesting place right now with no bubble. I saw a quote saying that, the asterisk season would be this season, not the bubble season. The bubble season is in the books, stamped as probably one of the hardest NBA championships to win. But the asterisk season is going to be this season, because we saw right after the Nets played against Philly, Seth Curry tested positive. Then the Sixers had to quarantine in New York. And then, they had players out for their next game. We also saw last night the Heat and the Celtics game. They couldn't run the game because the Heat couldn't field a team of 8 players or something like that. COVID is starting to hit, and it's not just players testing positive for COVID. It's the contact tracing, where if you've been in contact with someone that test positive for COVID, like we saw with KD, you got to sit down for a couple of days. You got to test negative a few times. And then also, with this team, I was worried about injuries. I went from saying like, hey, this team's got to stay healthy. And when you look at the rest of the league, we got guys like Markelle Fultz in Orlando, goes down with a knee injury. Thomas Bryant, my least favorite Wizard. I hope he is doing well, and I hope, speedy recovery. But that guy just went down with a knee injury. I think I saw Bogdan Bogdanovic with another knee injury. So teams are losing guys. It ain't just the Nets, right? We're without Kyrie because of personal leave, but teams are losing guys from COVID, and they're losing guys from injuries. It's all a part of the season. It's all a part of the journey. It's all a part of what is going to happen and the adversity you're going to face. And I went from praying for health to now praying for Kyrie. Like KD said, he's going to pray for Kyrie after the game. So let's talk about this Thunder game. And honestly, I hate talking about losses, especially back-to-back losses on the pod, because it's just going to sound like we're complaining about everything. It's going to sound like we're overreacting about everything, but that's what this is for. I have so many just negative notes. Let's start with this. Let's start with this, what the breakdown is. I think Billy Reinhart put out the Nets are 3-4 with KD. They're 4-3 with Kyrie. They're 3-3 with KD and Kyrie. The Nets without KD and Kyrie are 1-2. And then I also saw the Nets against teams currently at or below 500 are 1-5. The Nets against teams currently above 500 this season, 4-0. Now that goes to something that Steve Nash said in the press conference yesterday about the lack of pride, lack of effort. And on the pod last week, or the last pod we did, I talked about us playing down to our opponents and playing up, which really you shouldn't be playing down to any opponents or up to any opponents this early in the season. The records are deceiving. Let's start talking about the game last night. I guess just start with your thoughts from the beginning of the game. What I always say, can't win the game in the first quarter, but talk about collapses. Man, there's so many questions, and we'll dive deeper into the questions on Steve Nash. We'll talk about why Bruce Brown wasn't in the game. There's a lot of talk about Landry Shamet, Sadiq Bey. There's just so much on Nets Twitter that everybody is debating over and arguing about right now. But let's talk about game 11 out of 72. The Thunder come in here 4-4. We're 5-5, 2 500 teams. But OKC ends up being the better team last night. They look like the better coach team. You and I have praised Sam Presti and the job that he's done in OKC. I was impressed with that team. That is not a young team. It might appear to be a young team, but they have veterans in there, and they have guys with real experience. What were you thinking last night watching KD go off, but the Nets lose?
Well, it was a tale of two games. In the first quarter only, the Nets showed up like the team that we all expect them to be. The bench showed out. They looked like a starting unit. They shot 71% from the field. Karis LeVert looked like the Karis LeVert from the Memphis Grizzlies game. Looked like he carried on that massive performance. He was playing really well. He was shooting very efficiently. I think he finished 4 for 4 from the field. He had a lot of points. He was playing great. Kevin Durant, he had some early sluggishness, but then he came back and he turned into Kevin Durant. But, that didn't continue. We scored 41 points in the first quarter. And then in the second and third quarters combined, we only scored 40 points. And that's the tale of the game. And, you talked about what the Nets records are, against 500 teams, against, good teams, against whatever. I think the most telling, one of those stats is the Nets are 0-6. All of our losses have come when the bench scores less than 35 points. 5-0 when they've scored more than 35 points. It's black and white. And the bench did not perform today. And, we switched up the starting lineup. We took some of the firepower out of that bench unit. Joe Harris entered the starting lineup, which, for me Joe Harris belongs as a starter in the NBA without a doubt. But you start to wonder if you're not going to stagger KD and Caris LeVert to minutes, and they didn't, which created a whole host of issues, when it came to KD sometimes not even touching the ball on offensive possessions, which was just absolutely frustrating to watch because we have Kevin Durant and, Caris LeVert is so ball dominant and they're passing, running the offense through him that KD can't even touch the ball. But there was no scoring on the second unit. Like, our second unit was left to be led by TLC, and we love TLC. We're TLC stans, but he's not someone that can be ball dominant and lead a unit entirely on his own. So we saw Joe Harris enter the starting lineup. Taurean Prince shifted back to the second unit, who I have to admit, especially in the first half, had a great looking game. He had that one dunk. That was the most aggressive we've seen him play, since he's been in Brooklyn. But there was no scoring from the second unit. Caris slowed down. KD heated up. But, for these last two games, I'm just going to give, Caris against Memphis and KD last night, I'm just going to give them the Bradley Beal Memorial Basketball Award because they put up huge performances and losses. And it's unacceptable to see that just from the team's perspective, because you have someone who is playing like is one of the best players in the NBA. And in case of Caris against Memphis, is playing like one of the best players in the NBA. And you're just, leaving them out to dry because there's no help. There's no, no one is getting into places. No one is doing what they need to do. There's no secondary scoring. There's no tertiary scoring. That's what we were so excited about with this Nets team. We were all, our second unit is a first unit. Our second unit can make the playoffs. But no, it can't. Not with the way that it's been playing. And, you alluded to some struggles that, Nets Twitter pointed out almost immediately. Bruce Brown, after starting 4 straight games, didn't get the start. And he, in fact, didn't get the start so much that he only played 3 minutes of basketball that weren't garbage time minutes.
Forgot about him. They forgot about him.
And to me, I agree with Kevin Durant wholeheartedly when he said the turning point of the game came when Amadou Diallo came off the bench and brought that energy to the Thunder. And, they just outworked the Nets, and they had more energy, and they brought that, which is something that's huge when you're playing without fans. It's all about who can bring their own energy. We've seen that across sports, in college basketball, more road teams are winning against, home teams. In the NFL, we saw the same thing happen. Yep. So you got to bring your own energy, and Nets didn't do that. And it's a shame because, we lost by playing terrible defense and not having enough energy. And we have Bruce Brown on this team who is all defense and energy. And he showed that in the games that he played. And he was obviously a plus defender when he played. And he gets 2 minutes of real time compared to Landry Shamet, who I think got around 18 minutes. And then he had 23 minutes against in the Memphis game. And, I don't want to write off someone's entire career based on 11 games, but Landry Shamet is a career 40% three-point shooter. He's dropped down to a 29% three-point shooter. He's averaging like 2 points a game. He's missing all of his shots. He's taking shots like Musa, but none of them are falling. And it's just disappointing to see that because, like you said, and, like Ned's Twitter was very apt to point out last night, we traded away essentially the 19th pick, Saddiq Bey, for him, and I honestly think the Nets could have drafted anyone else and he would have had a more successful, first 19 games unless he got injured, or first 11 games unless he got injured, just because there's no protection coming from it. And he's taking open shots. So it's not that he's not getting, quality shots. He's just missing shots. His shot isn't falling, and I'm sure it will eventually, but it's just so disappointing to see him play so many more minutes than Bruce Brown when it's so obviously not working. And it's so obviously not the issue that we need to address. The Nets scoring kind of fell off, but we were getting destroyed playing defense. The Thunder, they average 101 points per game. They put up 126 points on us. That is unacceptable.
No defense is easy.
There's no defense. It's an easy solution. And, now the focus kind of shifts towards Coach Nash. And in 2 games in a row, we saw him kind of make the same mistake. He is far too hesitant to pull players when they need to be pulled and to put in the good players when they need to be put in. And we'll talk about it, but in the game before, we saw, DeAndre Jordan hold Jared Allen out until there were 2 minutes left on the clock. And in this game, Landry Shamet took all of the minutes away from Bruce Brown, and that's just unacceptable. And you need to be quicker to pull the trigger when it's so obviously not working. But, my take on it is, Steve Nash is a rookie head coach. He is someone, that's kind of expected to make mistakes. We have Jacques Vaughn, Udoka, and D'Antoni on that bench. That is massive amounts of experience. And, from the outset, either they're not helping or they're helping in the wrong way. And I don't know what to say about it because I'm not, on the bench in the locker room, but I don't know where they are when it comes to things like calling timeouts, subbing players in and out, and
making in-game adjustments.
Making in-game adjustments, being an offensive and defensive coordinator, just like they said they were going to be. And the last thing that I'll say before I let you just take it away is Steve Nash was brought in to be a motivator, to get this team playing the right way, to have them have that energy. And he came out in the press conference and said, there's no energy. They came out flat, no pride, no respect. It's his job to inspire that pride and respect. He was brought in to be, a leader of men, not to be a tactical X's and O's guys. We had coordinators for that. He was brought in to lead people, to inspire them to play basketball. And he can go out there and say, they just weren't inspired. They didn't do this. They didn't do that, as much as he wants. But at the end of the day, it's your job to inspire that change. And at this point, we just have to hope that he does going forward. But so far, it hasn't been great.
It's growing pains. It sucks. Don't get me wrong, man. I have a leash and I have an amount of time, right? As of tomorrow, we're 3 weeks into the season. Once we get to like a month, 2 months into the season, you got to learn from these things. And it sucks because we make the splash, Nash hire, and everybody's pumped because you give Steve Nash the respect for the basketball mind he is and what he's actually done on the court. But you put a first-year head coach in this situation, he's got to figure this stuff out on the fly in his first year. So it's like, imagine you're figuring stuff out in your first year. That's hard enough. And then you have to deal with the media. Then you have to deal with Kyrie. Then you have to deal with what's going on in the country. Then you have to deal with COVID. Yeah, I don't know how smart of an idea it was to bring in a rookie head coach in 2020 in this year where things are just upside down. It's already coming back to bite us. I know it's early. We're 5-6. It's not going to make or break anything, but it's frustrating when you see this team come out hot. You see KD is doing his thing. KD is cooking. They had me fooled. Got to send shout out to Taurean Prince, right? When you said you change up the starting lineup and you need points coming off the bench. Yes, Joe Harris should be a starter in this league. We pay him like he's a starter, but he did give us good minutes and energy off the bench. At least Taurean Prince brought energy. I love to see him get into the rack, crossing up guys, dunking on somebody. Like he even had a layup where he just went straight to the right side of the basket and laid it in. Do that. It doesn't always have to be a 3. Landry Shamet, I'm not going to talk about too much because I could just chalk it up as a bad couple games. The guy, I'm seeing all these memes with him and Sadiq Bey. We know the guy started off 0 for 4 last night, missed his first 4 3-point attempts, just didn't look good. Joe Harris keeps his streak alive with his 3-pointers made in the game. Good for that. Back-to-back games keep the streak alive from 69 to 70, but they're in losses. And this is the last thing I'll say about the Thunder game. That game was tied at 76, and then it was pretty much done after that. OKC is a good team. They have a good coach that they appointed, basically, brought him up, kind of gave him the position within the company, kind of gave him a raise and a promotion. Sam Presti, you've heard us talk about the job he's done with deals and draft picks. This team is competitive and they're good. Al Horford, I'm watching Al Horford last night. Like, this guy still got it. This is not a young team. They've got Al Horford out there. Dort, SGA, Diallo. These guys gave it to us, man. And like, they weren't afraid, and they weren't respecting, talking about energy and respect. Like, they had all the energy and respect. And this is where we started to unravel. It was late in the third, and there were like 3 fouls in a row. From my notes, I think it was Joe, then KD, then Jared Allen. 3 fouls in a row. Then OKC goes on a 10-2 run. And it's frustrating. You're just watching all of this happen, and we're unraveling again, and we have veteran players. And that's why I say this goes to coaching. Someone's got to call timeout. Someone's got to coach them up. They need help out there. It's all like the sky is falling, and we're just watching it fall. Steve Nash, I feel like sometimes has blinders on, or maybe he's watching the game like he's at home. Like, no, dude, you are the head coach. You can stop this if you see something not going your way. And a frustrating play, the ball goes out of bounds, and it hit off OKC, but it was so quick. We at home see the replay. It was called out on TLC. No review happens, and they get a quick three, and it immediately turns into a three from Roby, and then a 3-point play from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then DeAndre Jordan pushes Diallo in the back, and I'm ready to change the game right then, because DeAndre Jordan, you already know how I feel about him coming into the game and what he does. The only positive out of the whole DeAndre Jordan stoppage and play and foul was that we got a John Sterling impression out of Iron Eagle. I love that. Yankees Nets synergy. Down 13 in the fourth, it turned into a 31-point swing for the Thunder. That's disgusting. We can't play defense, and we're struggling on defense, and not once did they think, let's get Bruce Brown in the game. Right? If you're worried about Bruce Brown's offensive production that much, like, get somebody that's going to bring the energy, bring the dog mentality, and play defense. They put him in late in the fourth, and I was kind of pissed off at that. Like, don't even throw him in there now. Like, what is the point? It was the first game, like I said, that I turned off all year. And honestly, man, I started thinking about Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson didn't get a chance to coach this team. Kenny was ran out of here. And there was some synergy as we go into this Memphis game quickly to talk about that. There was some synergy here because Kenny Atkinson did inspire this team, did fire up this team where Cheese and LeVert go to Boston and beat the Celtics. And then the next game, we end up losing to the Memphis Grizzlies. And they tell Kenny Atkinson, your time here is up. You helped us get here, but you won't get to coach our stars. And I'm thinking about Kenny now. Kenny probably would have been fired 11 games into the season if this was Kenny. But you know what? This wouldn't be Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson wouldn't be coaching these guys like this. Kenny Atkinson would know exactly what to do with these guys. I don't know. Share your thoughts on Kenny. I know it's stupid to go backwards. It's stupid to go back and talk about our old coach, but it wasn't that long ago. We went from Kenny to Jacques to Steve Nash, and now we're in a position where we need veteran leadership. We need a coach with head coaching experience to lead these guys in this tumultuous time of COVID and injuries and guys taking personal leaves, and we're all looking confused right now.
I'll just say what our guy Pooch said. If this was Kenny Atkinson, he'd be getting chased down Atlantic Ave with, pitchforks and torches right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it wouldn't be because, at the end of the day, and I support Steve Nash, I don't think that these 11 games are reflective of how he's going to be as a head coach, going forward. I think he's going to make these changes. I think we've seen some signs of improvement. Last night, we saw some nice energy in the press conference, but, why do you hire the rookie head coach and add another variable to a team with so many variables? And, we were both very initially excited. We made the splashy fun hire, but, some of that is coming to bite us. And the insurance that we kind of brought in that was our assistant coaches isn't showing up. So something needs to change. And I hope it comes from Coach Nash, but it has to at least come from the decades and wealth of experience we have coming from our assistant coaches, because that's what they were brought in to do. They were brought in to do the X's and O's, the tactical management. And if it doesn't happen from them, things are only going to keep getting worse because, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if we can't do our best to, raise up and strengthen that weakest link on this team and to inspire confidence in that weakest link, whatever it might be on whatever night it might be, then this team isn't going to go far. And it's up to Nash and his assistant coaches to do that. And I just hope they can. I think they can. But, 11 games into the season, let's look at it. Let's look at it another 11 games from now, and let's see what they do, because changes need to be made, and they need to be made quickly.
Okay, so quickly in the next 5 minutes, we'll talk about game 10 out of 72 here. Memphis, man, what is up with the Nets in Memphis? I already talked about Kenny. I think his last game was a loss to Memphis. We faced them twice already in this year. We lose to them twice without Ja Morant, without Jonas Valanciunas. Friday in Memphis, the Nets lose 115 to 110. And I was ready to make excuses for these guys because they get on the plane after a win and they learn that Kyrie is not going to be joining them, and that steals the headlines, and that starts all of this Kyrie talk in New York City and beyond. I was ready to make excuses for the Nets, but they could have won this game. And this was a frustrating loss, but in a different way. Just the way that the Nets started off, when I always say can't win or lose the game in the first quarter, but the way the game started, it was a different energy and not in a good way. In the games that we won, the Nets came out with the right energy right away, started early and finished all the way through. I was ready to make excuses for these guys. They flew into Memphis late. It was a back-to-back. These back-to-backs are tough, especially as soon as they're opening their phones or, listening to the radio or watching TV, all they got to hear about the Nets is Kyrie and also what's going on in this country. It sucks, but the Nets should have won this game. The Grizzlies get their first home win in front of 31 fans. I enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed seeing there were fans in the stands. Gives me some hope. But once again, like I said, it was about energy. On episode 72, I said the reason the Nets won those games is because they started with the right energy. Against the Jazz, they didn't. So it ended up being too little too late when they tried to come back. I don't know. Bruce Brown started this game, right? Didn't Bruce Brown start the Memphis game? I don't understand why he didn't play so much yesterday. It just shows you that, like, Nets Twitter, we're big on Bruce Brown. Inside the Nets or Steve Nash or whoever, like, they're not as big on Bruce Brown. Joe Harris, let me see. This is the game. Oh, this is the game where late in the game where this is all we really need to talk about. Joe Harris doesn't get back into the game late until 3:30. Jared Allen is stuck over there in limbo waiting to get in the game. Memphis is missing shots, literally just giving us the ball back every possession. The clock is ticking. We can't score. We turn the ball over late. Splash. They hit a three. Jeff Green plays 34 minutes. This was a weird ass game. Karras went off in this game. We wasted 43 points out of him and we just blew it at the end. The team collapsed at the end, which shows a lack of coaching, a lack of preparation, a lack of knowing what to do in the end of game situations. And when that stuff happens, I can't wait to watch the post game. Before we talk about the post game, I'll kick it back to Hudson for thoughts about in game and what happened at the end of that game.
I'm just going to, take away any excuses right off the bat. Nets didn't have Kyrie, didn't have KD. Okay. Guess who the Memphis Grizzlies did not have? Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Jonas Valanciunas for half of that game. The Nets are missing their big two. The Grizzlies are missing, their three best players. Then that's not an excuse. The Nets played a back-to-back. So did the Grizzlies. There's just no excuses for that going in. And it was at least a close game all the way through. But it came down to the same old things that we keep talking about with the Nets. And, like you said, 3 minutes left, Joe Harris comes in. 2 minutes left, Jared Allen comes in. And that's all you can really chalk it up to at the end of the game. It's just disappointing. We were able to stay in the game. Joe Harris kept the streak alive, which was what we all wanted to see. But, it's just difficult to root for this team when you see some issues that, that keep popping up, like the defense, like the rebounding, like the turnovers. And I just feel so bad for Karras because he put up a beautiful 43 points. It was 43 points on amazing shooting. I can't remember what the percentage was, but he was shooting so well. Remember that, that time in the game where he was just hitting threes left and right. I think he hit 5 of 5 threes in like 2 minutes.
Cornrow Karras, bro. It was the cornrows. It was the blue jerseys. He tapped back into his powers. He was hitting everything in the paint and his threes were falling.
It was ridiculous. I mean, in that stretch when he went 5 of 5 from 3, we never thought it wasn't going to drop. and it didn't. And it was just amazing to watch him do that. But it becomes so much more depressing, just like it was with KD last night, when you have such a masterful performance, such an unstoppable player, just do all of that for nothing. And you know what? Like I said, this must be what Wizards fans feel like when they have Bradley Beal go off and they lose games. But, you know, it's just so depressing for this team to see that. And the depressiveness, it was all compounded in that last couple of minutes when the Nets had easy and obvious chances to win the game. They couldn't do it. They don't make the subs at the right time. They leave DeAndre Jordan in there. Jarrett Allen doesn't come in. They don't call a timeout to get Jarrett Allen in the game because
let's talk about that. Let's talk about
because can we talk about that? Because I was holding
getting close on
back.
Time here. In the press conference after the game, Steve Nash said he didn't want to burn a timeout there. And my immediate response was, Steve Nash, burn the timeout in game 10 against Memphis to get DeAndre Jordan off the fucking floor. Jarrett Allen is playing like an all-star. You've got him sitting over there like a little child waiting to get back in the game to potentially save us, and it all unravels. It all collapses in front of your eyes. Put your hands together, make that tea, and call the timeout. What are you talking about? You don't want to use the timeout. The time was burning. There wasn't going to be another opportunity to use the timeout because you were letting the game slip away.
Disrespectful to the team, disrespectful to Jarrett Allen, disrespectful to Joe Harris, all of that. And, you know, DeAndre Jordan, he came out, he said DeAndre Jordan was giving us good minutes. You know, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but regardless, you put your best players on the court. Can you imagine if that was Kevin Durant sitting there and it was someone like Landry Shamet who couldn't come out for Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving or something like that, and they don't call a timeout to put in their best players?
It might happen.
Because guess what? Because that is going to happen, and that is unacceptable, and it's just ridiculous to see. And there are things that can be fixed. Defense, rebounding, turnovers, that can be coached out of the game. That can be fixed. What can't be fixed are these kind of mental mistakes from your coach, and they're the scariest kind of mental mistakes because those are the kind of things that you see pop up in the playoffs. When you need a timeout, that's a huge thing to know when you need it. Jacques Vaughn knew exactly when to call timeouts in the bubble. That was one of our takeaways from him. He knew exactly when to call a timeout, when to get his team, you know, get their feet back under him, let him take a deep breath, tell him what to do. That was huge. I don't know why he's not telling, or maybe he is telling Coach Nash when to call these timeouts, but maybe it's ego getting in the way. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But these are scary things for the future of this team. And if they don't start moving in the right direction soon, the Nets aren't going to be a good team.
I saw some people saying they think it's sabotage. They think that Jacques Vaughn and Mike D'Antoni want Steve Nash's job, so they're not helping him. I'm like, no, these guys want to win. They took this position, like they took their positions with this team to win. I don't think it's sabotage. I don't think it's that. I think it's the flow of the game and them still learning game 11, like how to do things. I'm good with it though. Like it is what it is. You know, no KD, no Kyrie that game. We turned the ball over 19 times. We should have lost that game, but what I'm not good with is Nash and some of these decisions around DeAndre Jordan. This is the last thing I'll say about DeAndre Jordan. And as we wrap up this episode, I thought it was just a media thing where the media will ask Steve Nash about like trying to get Steve Nash to say like Jarrett Allen is our starting center moving forward. Like he's the guy, kind of getting them. They're trying to get him to, you know, give Jarrett Allen that like official sound bite that says like Coach Nash is confident in you, and he just doesn't do it. And I guess it's because, you know, DeAndre Jordan, maybe they have a relationship. DeAndre Jordan came in the league when Nash was like one of the best players in the league or something. I don't know. Did they play on the same team?
No,
I don't think they ever played on the same team, but they were in the league together. So maybe there's a respect, right? Nash being a veteran and him going out and like looking at DeAndre Jordan as a veteran, trying to protect him as a veteran player and give him his minutes. But he's just hurting the team. I don't want to see him on the court for more than 10 minutes. That might be too much. And I don't like how Nash plays in the media and doesn't just give Jarrett Allen the like vote of confidence that he is the guy. Enough is enough. We can't have these mistakes much longer. If we're using all of this as an experiment time, experiments are over. We have our answers. We got to get better. Hudson, you got anything else to wrap this episode up?
It's winning time, and the Nets need to start winning.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to do all the song and dance at the end. You guys know all the information. We'll be back with the next episode after we play the Nuggets and we play the Knicks, which could be back-to-back losses as well. So let's go Nets, Brooklyn.
We go